WCBI News at 10 starts now.
Thank you for joining us here on Election Night, the primary runoff edition. I'm Tommy Lopez. There should be a conclusion tonight for the race for mayor in Starkville, but there isn't one right now. No Republican or independent candidates are in this race. The runoff in the Democratic primary between Johnny Moore and Lynn Spruill will decide this race, but these numbers right now are unofficial. This is up to the minute. We just got in a couple of more just a couple of minutes ago. You can see Lynn Spruill with a slight lead, just more than 30 votes, 1783 to 1747, Lynn Spruill's lead over Johnny Moore. They are going to count absentee and affidavit ballots tonight in Starkville. They have already done so for 3 of the 6 wards. For the other 3 wards, they are counting right now, and those final votes could very well decide this race. As it looks like tonight, we will know the results before the night is over, or at least before the sun comes up. We don't know right now. In that May 2nd primary, no candidate got 50%. Challenger Damian Poe is in the mix. Spruill led by a small margin. This is after current mayor Parker Wiseman decided not to seek re-election. Spruill tonight is at Beef O'Brady's, and we hear Moore is at Moe's Barbecue, for what it's worth. They were at both those locations on May 2nd. Stay tuned online for the very latest on this race tonight. We'll have an update tomorrow morning on Sunrise. The other race on the ballot in Starkville is for the Ward 1 seats on the Board of Aldermen. This race ended in a tie a couple of weeks ago. Tonight, incumbent Ben Carver is going to come away a winner. A 23-vote margin here. It looks like 21 actually on your screen. There are 3 affidavit ballots still out there, still left for them to count. Carver faces no opposition after beating Jason Camp. No opposition in the June general election. There's one race on the ballot in the city of Columbus. It's been a contested city council race between incumbent Marty Turner and challenger Frederick Jackson. And there will be a new face in Columbus leadership. Jackson has won tonight by a margin in this race of more than 90 votes here, 304 to 207, not including 5 affidavit ballots in that race. So the Democrat will take the Ward 4 seat. There are no other challengers. Turner narrowly led the vote count on May 2nd, but he's out after 1 term. People in 3 more area towns have voted for mayoral candidates today. Macon voters, like those in Starkville, will have this Democratic runoff election to decide their next mayor with no other challengers in the race. Incumbent Bob Boykin has the lead in this race, 440 to 367 over challenger James Harland in Macon. That's not including absentee and affidavit votes, but those numbers are unofficial. We don't expect those few votes to change that result. Again, there are no other challengers in that general election. To the primary runoff in nearby Brooksville, incumbent Mayor David Boswell has won re-election. Challenger Early Henley Jr. has fallen short. The margin there was more than 50 votes, 247 to 195. So Boswell wins re-election because there are no other challengers. It is the town of Okolona that has the most runoff races in our area for tonight. There are no Republicans or independents on these ballots, so these are the unofficial winners after tonight. First, for mayor, the Democratic runoff, Sherman Carruthers has a lead here. There's updated numbers. We just got more in a couple of minutes ago. 539 to 501. Carruthers lead over Jerry Morgan. All precincts are reporting here, so it's only missing absentee and affidavit ballots. We're not expecting those to change that result. That margin, though, is slim enough that we're not going to call that final. So whoever wins this will replace Louise Cole, who lost that initial primary race. In the Ward 4 Alderman race, we have a dead heat. Imogene Armstrong and Regina Pickens tied, of all things, tied at 85 votes. That's not including some affidavit ballots. And those could also make a difference in the extremely narrow margin for town marshal in Okolona. These results are unofficial. Tommy Ivy, a 6-vote lead on William Randall. How tight are these races? So they have not counted absentee and affidavit ballots there. We could get an update very late tonight. We might expect one by tomorrow. In Louisville, there are 2 races. The Alderman at Large Democratic race, incumbent Francis Ball has won re-election, beating Gerald Hayes. That's the unofficial count, 542 to 410. There are still a few votes left. We don't expect enough to tip the scales there. That's 57% for Ball. The winner will not face anyone in June, so the race looks like it is going to Francis Ball there. The same holds true, there not being another candidate to face, for Ward 1 Alderman, the Democratic runoff race. Drew Massey has more than a 90-vote lead there, 194 to Beth Chandler's 102. We expect Drew Massey, though it's unofficial, to have that race. Middleton voters are picking a new police chief to replace A.D. Hurd. Gary Monaghan will take the position. He beats out Joseph Beasley, 21 votes the margin there, 266 to 245. There are no other challengers in that race either. To some other news we're continuing to follow tonight. The family of Ronnie Shumpert, the man a Tupelo police officer shot and killed almost a year ago, got some answers today from the U.S. Department of Justice, but it was not what the family wanted to hear. The family's lawyer, Carlos Moore, held a press conference today. It was to deliver this news. The federal investigation says the evidence is insufficient and does not prove that the officer violated civil rights laws. The DOJ now will not go after criminal rights charges against Tyler Cook, who's still with the department. Moore, the attorney, says that he has other evidence that will come out in a civil trial. That's later this year.
My forensic pathologist report tells me certain things about who was on top and who was on the bottom. And so while my forensic pathologist was not there that night, he has looked at the evidence and has given me his opinions, which I have shared with the other side, that will come out in court.
A grand jury declined to indict Cook in that shooting. That was late last year. And the city of Tupelo released a response to the DOJ findings. It says in part, quote, "The fact that both entities, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and the FBI, that have investigated this case, found insufficient evidence for prosecution of Tyler Cook speaks for itself."
Otherwise, today things have been pretty nice. Check out the sunset in Amory, some of those friendly clouds reflecting off the water. We're still pretty mild out there as of the 10 o'clock hour, 70s in most spots here. We're dry, you know that, but big-time storms erupting back to the northwest. They're going to stay out there. Moisture levels will continue to increase around here. The summery weather pattern sticking around. Spotty rain chances will return. Your full forecast coming up next. Stay with us.
WCBI election coverage is brought to you by Carl Hogan Honda. Pick it out here, carlhoganhonda.com. And pick it up here, Carl Hogan Honda. Your first alert weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Keith Gibson.
Pretty nice weather out there this evening. A picture from West Point showing some of those rays with the setting sun right there. Pretty nice out there this evening. Very nice and warm. Same story in Sulligent, Alabama, North Mississippi, West Alabama. We enjoyed a very warm day, upper 80s, flirting with 90. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Stay connected with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle there at WCBI Weather. I don't know why that thing keeps flashing. Let's just go on to the next graphic here, system. There we go. Okay, so we've had some pretty nice weather today. We still have some mild conditions right now. 71 in Columbus. No issues here. You will notice the dew point values into the mid-60s. That moisture level's creeping on up, folks. So a few days ago, we had overnight lows in the low and mid-50s, and now we're looking at lows tonight in the low to mid-60s, and we're still pretty warm right now. Tupelo, you're still at 77, but Starkville at 70, so temperatures kind of all over the place right now. 72 at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, 86 at noon on Wednesday, around 90 the forecast high. Also notice the wind speeds here from the south at about 10 to 20 miles per hour, perhaps some higher gusts as well to about 25. So we'll be a little bit breezier tomorrow. We are still warm. We will stay dry. And of course, we have no problems here with these highs in the upper 80s to around 90. We could use a little extra moisture because things will tend to dry out when we have all this sunshine, all of this heat. And the moisture is falling out of the clouds here across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes. These storms have been producing large hail, tornadoes, at least 20 tornadoes reported today with this baseball-sized hail damaging wind gusts. So it's been a pretty big outbreak of severe weather across the high plains. You can see these reports from the Texas Panhandle all the way up to Wisconsin and Minnesota. So that's the way it's been. Locally, we bring it back to home here. And you can see with Futurecast these red lines right here coming in from the south, those southerly breezes tomorrow. We're looking pretty good. Some increased moisture on Thursday, so our rain chances go up a little bit on a scattered basis here. 20% chance of rain on Thursday. We're looking at a 10%, Friday and Saturday, 10% chance of showers. A better chance, Tommy, as we get into your Sunday with a frontal boundary coming on in here. So there's our 7-day forecast. We're looking at some warm and muggy stuff through Saturday. A little bit cooler as we get into your Sunday and then early next week as well. So, Tommy, we're just stuck in the summer-like weather pattern.
We are. Summer is here. We're getting some new numbers in from Starkville. The lead is more or less about the same. You might have seen it on the bottom of your screen. Still about 40 votes for Sproul. Still numbers unofficial. We're still getting more absentee and affidavit ballots. Ward 7 just checked in. We'll have a check on that later on in the newscast tonight. But first, those are the numbers full screen here. So Lynn Sproul now over 1,800 votes. About 44 separating. Still unofficial results tonight. And area organizations taking a big step toward helping the homeless. We have this story from Tupelo when we come back. Northeast Mississippi's only homeless shelter will soon get a much-needed expansion and facelift. Our Ali Martin shows us the groundbreaking today on the multi-million-dollar project at Tupelo Salvation Army.
And 3.
All right.
This groundbreaking was more than 3 years in the making.
This is a wonderful day for the city of Tupelo, for Lee County, and our area.
Jack Reed Jr. is chairman of the Capital Campaign, which raised $2.4 million in donations, or $150,000 over the goal. That money will be used to build a 7,000 square foot shelter. It will have 25 beds for men, 20 for women, and 5 apartments to house families. The shelter will be named the Jim Ingram Red Shield Lodge. The late banker and civic leader was instrumental in getting the Salvation Army in Tupelo after seeing the work the ministry did for Hurricane Camille survivors in 1969.
This means the world to me. They're naming it after my father, and what it does is it's going to take care of the people that need help. And we're finally, the area, not only Tupelo, but Northeast Mississippi contributed to this, gave money, gave resources, and we're very excited to be named after my father. It will be well utilized by the community.
Work begins right away on the new shelter. That will take about 8 months. Then the rest of the Carnation Street facilities will undergo long overdue extensive renovations.
The current facility that has 2 dorm rooms are going to be remodeled for 2 additional family apartments. And it'll be a very big upgrade. It'll be new roofs on all the property, new ceilings, new flooring, and some reconfiguration of the interiors.
The new shelter and renovations should take about 16 months to complete. In Tupelo, I'm Ali Martin, WCBI News.
The current Salvation Army facilities were built in the early 1980s. Coming up tonight, highlights of the MHSAA Baseball State Championships from day 1 at Trustmark Park. That's next in sports.
WCBI Sports with Robbie Donahoe.
Day 1 of the Baseball State Championships at Trustmark Park is in the books. 4 area teams were in action in Pearl. We start in Class 5A. It's the back-to-back state champs from Oxford. Chargers trying to make it a 3-peat, taking on Pearl River Central in Game 1. Bottom 4, 1 on for Oxford, leading 1-0. Preston Perkins hits a liner. Ben Bianco is going to come around to score as Oxford takes a 2-0 lead. Bottom 6, tied at 2, 2 runners on for Preston Perkins. How about another liner to center? That gets through. Ben Bianco and C.J. Terrell both going to score. It's now a 4-2 Charger lead. They've come all the way back to take the lead. Top 7, though, that's when it all unraveled for Oxford. 2 runners on here for Pearl River Central, down 4-2. Eli Lee smashing a deep one to center, goes all the way to the wall. Austin Izzo and Hayden Dunhurst are going to score. That would tie the game at 4, and then Cade Lee would be next up to get the run home that would ultimately be your game winner. Oxford would not score in the bottom half of the 7th as the Chargers fall in game 1, 8-4. They will need to win game 2 to force a do-or-die game 3. Let's go to the games from earlier today. Nanawaya and Smithfield kicked off the week in Pearl, the state championships, and Smithfield got up to a great start. 2 winners on here for Peyton Blair. This one going into center, and it gets down. Heath Noe and Stuart Coggins are both going to come home to score. That would give the Seminoles a 2-0 lead. Top 3 for now for Nanawaya. Bases loaded, trying to take advantage of the bases juice situation. Sure enough, they would. Coley Taylor shot to short, mishandled at second. That would score Christopher Conley and Chris Smith. We are tied at 2 in the 4th. More of the same coming for the Warriors. This time, Chris Smith picks up a bat and takes this pitch into center. That would score Bryce Stanton. It's now 6-2 Warriors after 5. Like a good infomercial, wait, there's more. Coley Taylor, one more time, goes all the way to the wall and left. That would score Roper Ball. Nanawaya rolls in game 1, 14-2. They will play game 2 on Friday at 4 p.m. And Moorville trying to channel their inner softball trooper team as they're trying to win a state championship in 3A, taking on Seminary. And this is pretty good here. Andrew Pugh going down the left field line in the first would score Trace Henry and Hammer Franks. That's now a 2-1 Moorville lead. Later on, runners on the corners here. Watch Case and Hankins. You want to talk about the lost start of the bunt? That's beautifully done down the third base line. Ball gets away from first, would score Pugh. It's now a 3-1 lead for the Troopers. And then up next is Hammer Franks. Now, his first actual name is Andy, but we all call him Hammer because the kid can hammer a baseball. This one goes all the way to the wall and right, scoring another run. Moorville wins 10-7 as they will go for the state championship in game 2. Also want to mention Gordo won the 3A state title in Alabama tonight, and Winona Christian dropped game 1 to Wayne Academy in their MAIS AA state title series. So your Wednesday schedule, East Union, Corinth, and Tupelo all playing. Games will not be televised. They will be streaming online. Thursday schedule, Thursday, all these games will be televised on My Mississippi. That is a cable and over-the-air signal-only channel, so check your local listings to find that in your area. So you see Corinth, Tupelo, and Moorville all playing Thursday. Friday, we'll have East Union, Nanawaya, Smithville, and Oxford all playing their game 2s. And then if there's any game 3s necessary, those will be played on Saturday. College baseball. I can't understand what MSU is doing anymore, but they won again and come from behind fashion. That's their 22nd win when they've been behind, and they've come back to win this year. They're 34. Incredible. So the Bulldogs, that was a loss that they could not afford for their hosting purposes as they defeat Troy. Ole Miss was dealt a pretty bad blow to their RPIs. They lose at Arkansas State tonight 5-0, but you win 2 or 3 at Auburn. That sort of saves the regional hopes for the Rebels, so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. And baseball for the rest of the week. MSU will have LSU Thursday through Saturday series, and Ole Miss will be on the Plains taking on Auburn. That's it for sports. We'll have more news after this. Stay with us.
We have breaking news now. One more ward reporting absentee ballots. Let's look at the numbers. In the Starkville mayor race, Lynn Spruill has the lead, 1813 to 1771 over Johnny Moore. All affidavits will not be counted tonight, and right now there are still 2 wards absentee ballots that are not counted in this, but it is a 42-vote lead for Lynn Spruill. Follow us online and on our social media platforms for the latest. Thanks for joining us tonight.